In this video, you will create some backend logic in Lambda so you can use the online WebSocket client to send some meaningful messages. Meaningful in the context of the tic-tac-toe game. Open your Lambda function, and for now, just print the event and deploy the function. Click the Monitor tab and open the logs in CloudWatch Logs. It will automatically open in a new tab. In CloudWatch, if you have any log streams, you can delete them, although you probably shouldn't have any yet. Now, let's go to the WebSocket client. Click Connect. And then go back to our CloudWatch logs to see what's happening. Refresh if needed and open log stream. There's a log of your connection because you clicked Connect from your WebSocket client a moment ago. We also printed the event in Python. So let's take a look at what was printed. We can see that the route key is Connect. You might remember that we attached the Connect route to our Lambda in the previous video. Also, within the request context, we have information about the connection ID, which will be useful for us. We saw that the event is a JSON object, and the useful information for us is inside request context. From there, we can get the route key and the connection ID. And let's save it to the variables route key and connection ID, because we will use them later in the code. Now we can write that if the route key is equal to connect, we will do something. If the route key is equal to disconnect, then we will do something else. Don't forget the $sign for connect and disconnect. And finally, if it is game click, we will have different logic. Let's implement the logic for the connect route. We'll start by adding a variable called connection IDs. It should be a set, because we don't want to expect duplicate values. That's why a set is a better choice than a list here. When a user connects to our backend, we can add their connection ID to our set. Our user can disconnect the WebSocket connection, and we can keep track of this as well. So for the disconnect logic, let's discard the connection ID. I would like to add some logic for the game click. For now, it will be extremely simple. Let's just return the same message we received from the user, or even more interestingly, send that message to all connected users. We have a connection IDs of all connected users, so we are able to do this. For that, we need to import the Balta-zar library and specify our API gateway client. Balta-zar is a library used for working with AWS services. Do you remember that we're sending data back to the client through API gateway? That's why we need to use the API gateway client in our code. So write API gateway client is equal to Balta-zar.client. Specify that we want the API gateway management API. And lastly, we have to specify the endpoint URL. I prefer to store the value in a variable. You can find the value for your endpoint URL in your API gateway. Open your API gateway. Click on Stages, and you'll see information about the WebSocket URL and the endpoint URL, just like we saw earlier. Copy the endpoint URL from there and paste it into the Lambda function, but delete the last part /connections. Now we can use our API gateway client to send data to client, but it's important to understand how to read what the user sends to us. So let's print the event again and deploy our Lambda function. Go to CloudWatch Logs and delete the old log streams so you're not distracted by old logs. Now go to WebSocket client, remove the WebSocket URL, set the action to game click, and set the move to, for example, 7. Click Send. I assume that your connection is still open, and if it's not, then you need to connect first. Now let's see what's in the CloudWatch logs. Wait for the log to appear and then open it. You can see that the message the client sent is inside the body, and notice that it's a string, actually a stringified JSON. Let's print it just to make sure you understand it. Deploy the function again. Remove the old logs from CloudWatch logs, and send a message from the WebSocket client. Open the new log stream. And we can see a string with a stringified JSON that contains the action and the move. Because the body is a string, we have to use JSON.loads on the event body. Now we can easily grab the information about the move the client sent to us. Now you can send the data to the client using API gateway client and method post a connection. Specify which connection ID you want to send the data to. You can use the connection ID of the user who sent us the message. And finally, specify the data you want to send to client. We have to send the data as a string, so we need to use json.dumps. And for example, just send the information about the move the client sent to us. Deploy Lambda function. The moment we've all been waiting for, the big moment of truth. And luckily, our code works. We are sending a message to the client. How exciting! Let's recap this. Our client specified that the action is game_click. Because of that, our Lambda executed the logic for game_click. It's great progress, but now I want to have functions for post to a client and for post to all clients. For post to a client, I want to send connection ID and data. Take the line we use for posting to the client and move it into our function. Modify connection ID to conID. And of course, remove the old data and just pass the data. Now we can use our function and simply specify the connection ID and the data we want to send. Note that json.dumps is now inside the function, so you only need to pass the JSON. Let's deploy it and test it again. Disconnect, then connect. Send the message. The client receives the move correctly. It's always nice when refactoring doesn't break anything. So guess what? Let's continue with our refactoring and add a post to all clients function. Here we want to loop through all connection IDs and send the data to each connection ID. Now let's use this function. It would be cool to send data to all users of your application. Don't forget the S in clients, like I did. It's not something we expect, but it's the internet. So there's always a possibility that API gateway will fail for some reason. So let's add a try except block. And simply print the exception. Deploy it. And this is the last deploy in this video. Let's test this again. And voila, our application works. Most interestingly, you can even open a new browser or use a WebSocket client on your phone and exchange messages.